Test, test.
Okay.
I'll use that one. Okay, I'll let him know. Yo. How's everybody doing today? I know it's early and I know that the weather's bad, but let's get a little more enthusiasm out of you, Calgary. That's what I like to hear. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Spotlight on Kevin Eastman panel. Again, there we go. I'm Byron from the 404s. I'll be your humble moderator today. And at the beginning of our presentation, we're actually going to have a video as well as a PowerPoint presentation. And then after that, we're going to get into Q&A. A couple of housekeeping things. So no flash photography allowed in here, guys. So keep the flash off. Also, please turn your cell phones off or turn them to vibrate. And because we don't have a mic available, if you do have questions when we get to the Q&A period, please stand up and then project to the front so that way we can hear your questions. All right. You guys cool? You guys ready for the panel? Courtney, take it away.
Here we go, it's a lean green ninja team. On the scene, cool teens doing ninja things. So extreme, I'm pursuing like laser beams. Get right with the shell shock pizza king. Can't stop these radical dudes. The secret of the ooze ain't the chosen few. Emerge from the shadows to make their move. The good guys win and the bad guys lose. Leonardo's a leader in blue. Does anything it takes to get his ninjas through. Donatello is a fellow, has a way with machines. Raphael's got the most attitude on the team. Michelangelo, he's one of a kind. And you notice where to find him when it's party time. Not just split a ton of every single skill they need to be one lean, mean, green, incredible team. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Teenage Mutant Ninja
There we go. All right, guys, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Kevin Eastman.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for coming. I have to tell you that we have had an absolute blast up here in Calgary. Thanks for making this feel so warm, so welcome. It's been incredible. I love you all, and we're having a blast. We appreciate it very much. Thanks. This is kind of new. The Turtles' 30th anniversary is this year, and so my wife and I, this is the first lady of the Turtles here, Courtney. Yay! And so we kind of put together a little history of the Turtles. I'm going to take you through a bunch of slides, and I'm going to go a little quick today to make sure we get through to, if you guys have any questions, we can go through that. So, the infamous first Turtle cover, parodied Frank Miller's Ronin, inspired by Daredevil, New Mutants. All of our favorite things in comics we poured into this one comic, assuming nobody would buy a single issue. But a lot of people ask where Pete and I met, which is oh, you okay? Just make sure you guys can see. So the, I don't know if you can see that. I always like to say that Peter and I, we stand on the shoulders of giants, meaning that when we were kids, 7, 8, 9 years old, we read comic books, and we were inspired to draw and create by guys like Jack Kirby, Wally Wood, Steve Ditko, all that kind of stuff. And so with this piece here, this is a Jack Kirby Losers piece, and the first time I met Peter Laird, I wrote a letter to him after trying to sell my artwork to a magazine in Northampton, Massachusetts, and they said, well, we don't really publish your kind of stuff, but you should meet this guy, Peter Laird. He draws the same crazy stuff you do. And so I went to meet Peter's apartment, and he had this Jack Kirby original hanging on his wall. I'd never seen a Jack Kirby original, and it just blew my mind. And we became immediate friends and had to start working together from literally day one we met. And that was, let me see, 1982. So, and then we ended up, that was in Northampton, Massachusetts, and he then moved to Dover, New Hampshire, and with his wife, and I was working cooking lobsters on the coast of Maine. And when he had a room available in his house, the house you just saw, that was actually literally the home of the Turtles. That was the place where we created the Turtles, and this was actually my studio. It was our living room. Peter had a desk like this just the side of mine, and we called it Mirage Studios because it wasn't really a studio, it was our living room. And in 1983, that's where we created the Turtles. Pete used to watch these really terrible cop shows, T.J. Hooker and all that stuff, and so I thought it was my job to annoy him as much as possible when he was watching his favorite shows. So one night I did the sketch and said, this is going to be the next big thing, ha ha ha. So this is literally, it's Michelangelo. Michelangelo was the first turtle drawn, and I threw it on his desk. He laughed and immediately did this next drawing, changed a few things, added a few things to it, and again, we thought this was really dumb, you know, combining Bruce Lee as, what's the dumbest animal Bruce Lee could be, and it was a turtle. So next I penciled this piece of all 4 turtles. Of course, if you have 1 turtle, why not 4? And so I penciled each with a different weapon, and I put this big Ninja Turtle block over it, and when Pete did the inking on it, he added the Teenage Mutant part. And we were basically laughing ourselves into fits, and got up the next day, and as I love to say, we didn't have any distracting paying work going on, so he said, why don't we come up with a way to create our own comic book, self-publish our own comic book, and tell how these characters came to be. And so in the fall of 1983, we started working on that, and I forget what the next one is. Oh, this is a fun one. So in the fall of 1983, started working on the origin story, and like I said, we were inspired by comics as a kid, so we picked favorite parts of Daredevil, New Mutants, Frank Miller's Ronin. We combined them all into one story. And it was sort of inspired by what Dave Sim did with Cerebus. Cerebus was, you know, if you remember originally, it was this little aardvark drawn like Barry Windsor Smith's Conan comic books. And it started out as a parody, and then went on to do 300 issues and all the amazing things that it did. And so we said, well, if he can do it, why can't we do it? And we'll own and create our own characters. And besides, nobody's going to buy a single copy of it. So we're going to have a fun time. A lot of people ask where the names of the turtles come from. And this was a drawing. This is a painting I did in high school, and I graduated in 1980. And I was a huge fan of art history. Leonardo was my legend. And so when we came up with the idea of saying, well, what do we name these 4 mutant turtles? Well, traditional Asian names is respectful, but let's try something funnier. American names, well, not funny enough. How about Italian Renaissance painters? And so that's where we came up with Leonardo, Michelangelo, Raphael, and then Donatello was almost named Bernini. I like Bernini much better as a sculptor, and Pete said, we should find another one with an O, and Donatello was a contemporary and a fantastic artist. This is, again, you can't see these very well, but this is the first press release. When we came up with the comic book, we said, well, how do we get people to notice us? And so Pete said, well, we're going to send out a press release to all the local newspapers and see if we can pick up some press. And we did, because we were working towards a premiere at a comic book show in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, and that's where the Turtles premiered. But this is a copy of some art we came up with for that part of the press release. This is actually the advertisement, and we're down here. The survivors were the big headliners. But in May 5th, 1984 is when the first issue was presented to the world, and thanks to you guys, we have had a pretty incredible run. This was actually funny. Look at this guy. Oh my God, like 50 pounds ago. But when we finished the work on the book, we each sort of crossed off the last finished ink page before it went off to press. So then it was off to press. There's the cover of the first issue. That's where it premiered. We were going to sell this for $1.50 plus 50 cents postage, sell them single copy through the mail. And a lot of people asked too, the first printing was only 3,000 copies, $500 from an income tax return I had. We cleaned up Pete's $200 bank account. I borrowed $1,000 from an uncle, and we printed the first issue. And I'll show you a slide later where we show that they're all stacked in the living room. We made furniture out of them. We actually did. They were stacked into the. This was our studio. Like my desk was here, Pete's was there, and this is the stacks of comics everywhere. So we made coffee tables out of some, end tables out of some, not thinking we'd be able to sell the first issue. But the ad that was on the previous one, a lot of people ask, well, how do you tell which is the first issue? And the first issue has an ad for Gobbledygook, which is a black and white photocopied book. We only did 50 copies of each and sold about 2. But that's the only difference. In the second printing, third printing, all the ads changed in the back. But look at these two heroes, awesome. We actually decided before we did the show we didn't have anything to hang up behind us, so we did some paintings, and this is us sitting at the Portsmouth Comic Con 30 years ago this May. So that's funny. I was still trying to grow a mustache, still am actually. Shortly thereafter, we printed the first issue. I went back to cooking lobsters for the summer. That's how I made my money. Peter moved to Connecticut, and so I followed him shortly thereafter because we started getting calls from people that had bought the first issue, and they said, well, when's the second issue coming out? And we went, we should probably try to do a second issue. So I moved down to Connecticut, and I always love to show my studio space. This was actually the office space. We actually hired an employee, which was really funny, because Peter and I did everything. This is my studio space there, where the second issue was done and created in Sharon, Connecticut. And it was, here's me working on that, still working on that mustache. But we worked on the second issue, and to our surprise, the pre-orders, again, we very popular stacking all the comic books in our living room, but to our surprise, the orders for the second issue were 15,000 copies. And 15,000 copies, we did the math, and we could both make about $2,000 an issue before taxes. We could actually pay our rent, eat all the macaroni and cheese we want, and actually draw comics for a living. So I always like to point this out because this is where the dream came true. This is where I got to be an artist full-time, drawing comic books, and nobody believed me, especially my parents. He's going to be moving back into the basement anytime now. But we released the second issue in January of 1985. Here's some funny shots. I actually tried to dress myself up with a tie, and that got old quick. This was in Atlanta, one of the first shows. I'll just show some of the early art from some of the issues. This was issue 3. We introduced April O'Neil in issue 2. And issue 3 was one of my favorite issues because now that we were publishing and we could do anything we want, we were the editors, we were the writers, we were the artists, publishers, and so we were trying to come up with new ideas for each issue. I said to Pete one day, I said, I've never seen a van chase. I've never seen a car chase in any comic book ever. And he said, well, because that's stupid. Who's going to draw a car chase in a comic book? And I said, we are. And so in issue 3, I literally designed this 11-page section where I drew a car chase where April's VW van with all 4 turtles in it. It's racing around the city being chased by cops. This was our first year at San Diego. When we went to San Diego Comic-Con for the first time in 1986, they were actually hoping to get 10,000 people at that show. I mean, it was crazy. It was held in this little civic auditorium. The convention hotel was the Hotel San Diego, where the roaches would literally carry up your bags for you. And we went to San Diego, and that was like the biggest thing to us. It's funny, I like to put this picture in because I was a huge fan of heavy metal, and I got a heavy metal t-shirt on, Bernie Wrightson's Captain Stern. But at San Diego, we got to meet guys like this, which should be Jack Kirby. This to us was, as I mentioned Kirby a bunch of times, he was the guy, Jack Kirby's Commandy, when I had my paper route growing up in Maine, he's the one that inspired me to draw, and I always said, if I get a chance, I want to be like Jack Kirby, not only for his talent, his creativity, a lot of stuff that he's designed. He literally built most of the Marvel Universe. I know Stan Lee takes a lot of credit for what Jack did, but I think he shares the credit a little bit more now. But this was an awesome thing. We actually got to meet our legend, and we were just babbling idiots. Mr. Kirby, oh, you're so awesome. Yeah. This is, a lot of people ask me at the shows what my favorite one-issue microseries is, because we started doing the regular issues, then we had this idea where 4-issue miniseries were very popular in comic books. We said, well, if they're doing 4, let's do 1, and we'll feature each turtle in each of the microseries. But what I loved about Raphael, which was the first one we did, was the creation of Casey Jones. And he's my favorite human character in the series because vigilantes are really popular in comic books at this time, but they always had this horrific backstory of why they got to be, vigilantes and fight crime. So I designed Casey as somebody that just watched too much bad TV, put on his old hockey gear, and he's going out to fight crime. And what was great about the creation of Casey, and this is how Peter and I worked, is I came up with the basic design, the mask, the bats, and Pete goes, you know what he needs is a golf bag full of all kinds of different weapons, and that made Casey complete. I think we got a couple pages of Casey and Ralph here. Yeah, this is, and what I liked about the series was Raphael was my favorite turtle at this point. I liked him because he was kind of a wild card. You could tell all kinds of stories, but I wanted to kind of put him in check, so I wanted Raphael to actually meet somebody that was crazier than him. And so I made Casey crazier than him so Ralph could sort of reflect a little bit, and then from this point on, they became fast friends, and I think whenever I gravitate to turtle stories, especially single turtle stories, I always team up Raphael and Casey because you can go anywhere with them as characters. I'd like to show this piece was, up until issue 4, we did larger size comics, and we switched to a smaller size format, but this also introduced the first Turtles color cover that I did. It's our homage to George Lucas and Star Wars. We get this big cantina fight when they go off-world. But I also painted all the bandanas red. To me, I knew who the characters were by their weapons, and so it made sense to me, it wasn't until much later when we started working on the toys, where the black and white comics were written for an older audience. We needed to change some things, and I'll talk about that later. But these are a couple pages from issue 7, which is the end of the expanded Turtles origin, where we find out the ooze was of an alien substance, and that's what mutated them. And this is when they were reunited with Splinter early on, in my favorite page, when they were sent back through the transmat device and ended up in the bathtub in April's apartment. So it's kind of fun. Coming up to my, probably of many turtle issues, Pete and I only did 11 regular issues and 4 one-issue microseries, is Turtles number 8. I got to work with one of my biggest inspirations, which was Dave Sim. We met him in the Hotel Northampton, and I pitched this idea, and actually had written it out in on yellow line paper, and I gave it to him. The first thing he said was, "Your spelling sucks. You really need a," I said, well, they didn't have a spell check back then, but I was working with a legend, an idol, a guy that inspired us to self-publish, and is responsible for us taking control and ownership of our characters. So here's a couple fun pages from that. And actually, I wanted to show this one. I don't know if you can see it very well, but it's. Dave Sim did a Kickstarter campaign recently, and he asked me, he said, would you do a poster with me for as one of the prizes? And I said, yes, but we have to do it with turtles. And he used to joke that the 5th turtle was always Matisse. So Cerebus dressed as Matisse, the unknown Ninja Turtle. That's a fun piece, and it's pretty rare if you see it out there. We used to get lots of funny gifts back in the day. One of the guys that used to work on The Muppet Show actually sent this to us in a box. It was just the coolest thing ever. We did lots of really cruel things to it early on. But it was the first time we'd ever seen it in full 3D. And when we met our agent, Mark Friedman, who helped us set up the turtle deals, he actually sent that turtle to Playmates Toys. And then Playmates Toys, upon seeing this, said, we actually think we can make this into a toy, and we can think it make it work. So here's an early shot of, literally, these are just prototypes. Prototype of Rocksteady and one of the turtles. They hadn't even started making the toys. They were just developing the look. And this is premiere at Toy Fair. What's cool about this is when we had created the original turtle comic books, we had written them for us, so they were much older, much edgier. And we were working on the animated series and the toys. We knew that we were writing for a much younger audience. 6, 7-year-olds. And so things like people would say like, oh, you sold out, you did this, you changed so much. And I said, well, the funny thing is that we owned it, and all those decisions to change anything in the characters was ours. And so we chose to do things like, it was Pete's idea to change the different colored bandanas from all red to the colors that they are now, so people could tell them apart easy. It worked better in animation and stuff, but we still had full control over the characters. And this is the first, it was 1987, actually 1988 Toy Fair in New York City, where the first toy mirrored the turtle van, some of the secondary characters in the animated show, and it seems like 100 years ago sometimes, and it was awesome. As the studio grew and expanded, 5 minutes, oh my God. You sure? Can I just babble a little bit longer? Let's do 10 minutes, and I'll go through it. When the studio expanded, these are some of the artists: Ryan Brown, Jim Lawson, Steve Levine, this Pete. We were on our way to some signing, which was fun. This was the studio we grew into. Every part of the Turtle Empire was run by us. The Turtles Archie comic books, all the designs for the toys. We contributed to all the animated shows. We worked in 300 animated shows, all the live-action movies and that stuff, and it was great to have full control over characters. This is the final page of the final issue that Pete and I did together, which is Turtles issue 11. And then after that, we started working on different issues together as a series. When we started working on the movie, Jim Henson's Creature Shop in London built the Turtles. We met Steve Barron, who directed it, Todd Langdon, who wrote it, everything based on the original Turtle comic books. So until we get to the movie set, this is what we saw of the Turtles, as Jim Henson's guys built it. Full shop, and we just said, if you can actually make that jump around and leap and work on the big screen, then I think this could work as a series. My favorite, the baby turtles, pizza, pizza. And Splinter. This is the early concept of Splinter, and that was to bring him to life. I mean, the Turtles, at least you could put an actor in the suits, but Splinter was awesome. On the set with Jim Henson, it was an incredible honor to meet him. I grew up on the Muppets. A lot of the technology that was done to make the Turtles work was specifically developed for the Turtles that they went on to use in Dinosaurs and many other shows, but that was awesome. This was awesome. Meeting Casey Jones for the first time. Elias Koteas played Casey Jones. I got to meet him on set, and he was so worried he's not doing justice to our characters that I'm like, when I saw this, him running around the park with Raphael, it was like, man, this is just the most awesome. This was actually on the movie set. Second time around shop. Again, something we'd drawn in the comic books, coming to life on the big screen was incredible. Look at that handsome guy. I got one of the actors to pose reading one of the Turtle books, so it was kind of fun. Couple of my favorite images. I was still learning how to paint, become an artist, and this became a fairly iconic painting for me and the Turtles for one of the collections at Cerebus, and the other one for the other collection where we printed that, and that's the 4th Turtle collection. We did black and white comics, and the first time we got to do the Turtle comics in color, which was a blast. So. Mark Bodie, we did our homage to Bruce Lee in Shell of the Dragon. Grew up as a fan of Von Bodie. Mark Bodie, his son, not only drew like him, looked like him, and was just a fantastic guy. And he loved Bruce Lee as much as I did, so when we did this series, we just had a blast doing that. I threw these in just to, I'm now back working on the IDW comic, and we can talk about that a bit. You may have some questions, but this is the process, is basically, because I don't own the Turtles anymore, I sold them many years ago, but when IDW relaunched the series, they brought me back in to consult on the story, work on covers, and so I'll do like blue pencil design like this. Once Nickelodeon approves that, I do into the finished art. There's another one, 2 of my favorite covers. What else are we good? Oh, I stretched this one this morning. Wow. No, this was, we did this series called City Fall, which was this awesome homage to the Turtles City at War series that Pete and I did. And this one had everybody in it: Slash, Casey, April, Shredder, Karai, Bebop, Rocksteady. So I had to do a wraparound cover and fit everybody in. So, starting working on Nickelodeon. It was actually a dream. Cyril Neely, who grew up as a fan of the Turtles, his dad owned a pizza place in Philadelphia. It was his dream project to work on the Turtles. He was the one responsible for creating the Turtle universe that you see in the new Nickelodeon TV show, and I think he's done a fantastic job. He took it back to square one and does great things. Like this is his new version of Casey. Actually put my name, Eastman, on the hockey stick and Laird on the hockey pad. But it's great to see Casey. Everybody sort of reborn and taken into a new place for all the fans to enjoy. Ice Cream Kitty. You guys seen Ice Cream Kitty? Yes. Cyril wanted me to do a voice for the show. Said we got to find the right character. Courtney and I were at Comic-Con. He showed some drawings. They developed Ice Cream Kitty, and I said, I want to be like George Clooney in South Park was the dog. I want to be Ice Cream Kitty. And he thought I was kidding. And I said, no, seriously. So we did Ice Cream Kitty. use some shots of Ice Cream Kitty. Do you want? I got a little short clip. We want to show it at the end. We'll show Ice Cream Kitty at the end. So I basically lived with cats for about a month, practiced all my voice stuff. It was a method, really get into it to make sure I captured the right. This is a great scene. Michelangelo throws a cooler because Ice Cream Kitty has to live in the freezer because he's ice cream, right? And so he keeps him in this little cooler and he throws them at Rat King and it's funny. Renette, which was the character that I introduced in Turtles #8 with Cerebus. I got to do I'm working on an annual right now. It's a little late, but it's coming out. But I got to bring Renette back to do this time travel story. And then this looks kind of familiar. Do you recognize that model, Courtney? But it's great to bring Renette back at another time travel story, and that's coming out hopefully over the summer. It's a 48-page story. I'm writing and drawing the same thing with Tom Waltz. We're working on a 30th anniversary of the Turtles, which will also be out this summer. I got to team up with my old buddy Simon, who we did body count together. I penciled it, Simon finished it. And then what's cool is this next one is I got to work with Peter Laird again. He hasn't drawn Turtles in about 5 or 6 years. So I penciled this piece, and Peter inked it, and it's going to be on the 30th anniversary, which is absolutely killer, and there should be one more cool one. This is a piece that Greg at IDW came up with. He said, I love that iconic turtle shot you did, but I always wondered what happened 10 seconds later, and so I drew it. So it's 10 seconds after the first cover, and Pete inked it. And he just sent this in to me a couple days ago, and I just love it. I still own Heavy Metal Magazine. Again, a familiar looking model here, but for heavy metal, still going strong, better than ever. It's great to sort of have heavy metal as part of my universe. People always ask me what my favorite team up would be, if I could do a team up with a mainstream character. Daredevil, Turtles, write Marvel, tell them you want to see it. We'll do it. What else? Courtney and I goofing around. Somebody brought an awesome Casey mask and a turtle thing, so of course we wore them half the day while we were signing autographs until we sweat. Here I am, and is there one more shot at the end? No. That's it. Oh, good. All right, guys want to see a clip of Ice Cream Kitty? I think it's just a commercial clip. That's literally the fastest I've ever gone through that presentation. Usually about 4 hours. We take a break in the middle, have beverages, and come back for. Ice Cream Kitty. I just want to wear a shirt that says Ice Cream Kitty.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, April's Kitty, plus ice cream, plus booze, equals Ice Cream Kitty.
Aw, Kitty.
Don't miss a brand new episode of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles on a brand new day, next Sunday at 11 on Nick. On the next brand new...
Do you want to show? You've probably seen the trailer for the new movie. Do you want to see it again real quick, and then we'll take questions? Or if you've seen it, we can skip to questions if you want. You want to see it? Okay, good. Trailer, hey, yay! See, you broke it.
Crime, violence, and fear have run rampant. Our great city is being destroyed. People want justice restored to this world. People want heroes, Miss O'Neill. But heroes are not born. They're created. That's what your father and I were trying to do. Create heroes.
No, whoa, chill. It's just a mask. See? Don't freak out. Right?
Yay! So we got about, I guess, 15 minutes before they throw us out, and so we could do questions. You guys, what's the way how do you want to run the questions? Just raise. Well, it's a great question. Like, what would happen if somebody else, like Tim Burton, brought the vision to life? Would have been fantastic. But at the same time, we felt very fortunate, Steve Barron as a director, because when we started developing the series, we, again, were very worried that how are you going to bring this to life on the big screen, and what's the story going to be? And they had sent us a couple Hollywood writers that were, Pete and I left the room a few times and just said, this is not going to happen. And the producer of the movie, Tom Gray, said, well, meet the director. And Steve Barron had directed music videos like Billie Jean, Dire Straits' Money for Nothing, a-ha's Take on Me, and he'd worked with Jim Henson on the Storyteller episodes. And so when Steve came in, he had a large, one of the original black and white reprints of the collection of all the issues Peter and I did together. He posted it, all the points that he thought, all these components, parts of issue 1, some of the other ones, parts of Leonardo 10 and 11, this is our movie right here. And we were like, whew. And then they brought Todd Langdon in, who was writing for the Wonder Years at that time, had a great take on the story, and the best part was bringing Jim Henson in. So that was kind of a great marriage between the original black and white comic books and the animated stuff. So we were pretty thrilled that we got Steve the first time around, and we were less happy with the directors of the second and the third movie, but we'd also had certain controls over it, and we let some things go that we probably should have fought a little bit harder on. So I'm not mentioning Vanilla Ice, though, so don't go there. He's a good guy. Anyway, next question.
Yeah, you right up over there. You had your hand up first.
Yep.
Yep, right
Way up in the back.
I've read online that you had some insight into the new movie.
Yes, I know there's a lot of worry about when you see a trailer like that, and to me there's so many great parts of it, but that's like 30 seconds of what I've seen. I've seen the script. Actually, let me take a step back. When Michael Bay took over to produce the movie, Jonathan Eastman was brought on as a director, and he reached out to me immediately and said, look, we want you to come in. We want to talk about the kind of story we want to tell, the look of the characters, everything we want to do. I want to make it as true and cool and, also ratchet it up a little bit because, talking about 1990 was the first movie, and you guys have learned and seen a little bit more martial arts like The Matrix and, Raid Redemption, so we have to take it to places that it hasn't been before, but we still want to be true to the characters. So I've seen the script. I did some designs for the movie. I have a great cameo at the end, which hopefully they don't cut it, and it's kind of funny. But I feel like it's a great representation of the property. It's pretty true to the roots, and I hope that everybody that goes in with ready to be disappointed, I hope we change their mind, August 8th when it opens, because I'm pretty psyched about what they're doing. So, well, thanks.
Yeah, you right there. Yeah, you stood up.
That's a good question. Basically, from the creation of the Turtles in 1983, the first issue in 1984, by the time we'd gotten to the development of the animated and toy line, it was like 87. Everything was released in 88. We had already been working and writing and drawing together, intensely for, now, almost 4 years. And when, at that point, we were basically creating 90% of the time and doing the business 10% of the time. And when in 1988, when suddenly it was an animated and a toy line and everything, suddenly it did a complete reversal. It was like we're now spending 90% of our time managing the business of our property and 10% of our time being creative. But every single Turtle animated show, we worked on 300 episodes of the animated show. We had full approval, script, look, likeness, everything. We worked on all 3 live-action movies. Worked on the Turtles live-action show. Every aspect of the Turtles. At one point, I think we had about 3,000 licenses worldwide. The Archie series was all produced at Mirage Studios. Anything you ever saw with a turtle up until like 1997, we had complete control and say over. And it just got to be the point where we'd now spent heading better part of 12 or 13 years of loving every moment of, but eating, sleeping in Turtles. And I go back to both Peter and I wanted to be Jack Kirby, and we both had other ideas and things that we wanted to do. So even though we still had control over the characters, we started working with other artists and stuff to help get the material out there. And at some point, at that time, I'd owned heavy metal, and I wanted more time to do really crazy, edgier stuff. And so I stepped away first. Peter took control of the Turtles for a while, and then later on, the whole thing was sold to Viacom, who now has control. And what's weird is after a break, I'm now working more on the Turtles than I did back in the early days, working on the animated show, working on the IDW series, and working on the movies, and I'm just having, quite simply, the best time ever. It's sort of coming back to the Turtles, especially with the IDW series, reminded me how much I miss drawing the Turtles. I mean, they were never not part of my life. We do lots of shows, and they've always been around for all the years. But I love drawing them, I love telling the stories, and I love being involved in them. And it's really made me remember why that moment in 1985 when we get to have the best job, the most dream job ever of drawing comic books for a living, it reminded me how much I miss that. And that's what we do now. We spend all our time writing and drawing and having a blast. So, good question, though.
Yeah,
I love
right
your
over-
shirt, by the way. It's awesome.
Yeah, right over here with the leather. Yeah, right over there.
Yeah, I mean, like everybody else here grew up with Turtles. I remember the first moment I found the original Mirage comics, and like growing up with the animated show Mirage comics kind of blew my mind. But I actually had a question about heavy metal, which is I know that you were involved in Heavy Metal 2000, and I was wondering if you know the new upcoming Heavy Metal that I've been hearing.
Well, let me apologize for Heavy Metal 2000 first and foremost. That was, Ivan Reitman's idea of doing an animated anthology. I thought it had been done so well. My idea was to do a single story as a heavy metal story, introduce a new character, a new heavy metal universe. Unfortunately, the movie pretty much sucked. We had a good time doing it. It was a great learning experience, and I wish I'd followed in Ivan Reitman's footsteps and developed it that way. Goodness, it was a lot of people don't know I spent 4 years developing a new heavy metal movie with David Fincher, who's an incredible producer and director. He was going to direct a segment. We had 7. Zack Snyder was going to direct one. Guillermo del Toro was going to direct a segment. James Cameron was going to direct a segment. Mark Osborne, who did Kung Fu Panda, was going to direct a segment. Let me see. Jonan Vasquez, who created Invader Zim, was going to direct a segment, but we simply could not raise the money in the studio system. Fincher was pitching it as a single quadrant, 13-year-old boys, the last summer movie where they see before they go back to school and make an event, and the studio just couldn't get their heads around it, and nobody funded it. After 4 years, that went away. I met the incredible Robert Rodriguez. We spent about another 2.5 years developing a heavy metal movie. Same problem, he couldn't raise the money to do it. We have new investors in the company now, and we're looking to take it out and try to do it again. And, I think as time goes on, hopefully the audience will be more receptive to that kind of project, and I'd love to see it happen someday. So, thanks. Good question. Anybody else?
Yeah, right there.
I've only seen clips of that, but there's a show. I don't know if you guys know that heavy metal is based on a European magazine called Metal. It started in like 74, 74, and it closed up shop in, I think, 78. But 1977, the guys that published National Lampoon bought the rights to heavy metal, changed the name. I mean, I guess the specific translation is Screaming Metal, which was a French magazine. They translated it to heavy metal, started publishing it here. So it's amazing to, man, I forgot the question. I started to babble and I forget. Oh, the new movie. Oh, the new TV series, that's right. So, because it's so off my radar. So we were developing the Fincher movie and the Rodriguez movie, and then we got news that the original French company, Metal, they were developing a TV series. And so I was getting all these letters from people saying, hey, congratulations on the new heavy metal TV series. And it's like, well, it's not us. I've got nothing to do with it. It's nothing to do with us, but it's been produced over there. I guess they've done a bunch of episodes. I've not seen any of them. I don't know how good it is. I've heard mixed things about it, but that has no effect on us. Hopefully we'll do our own heavy metal TV series at some point. But so check it out. If you guys hear if you see any episodes, let me know. I don't know. Pretty good. So.
Okay, we got time for one more question, guys.
One more, then they're going to throw us out.
Yep, right up over there.
Well, it's fun. A couple things is like one, I used to play with nunchucks and lots of head wounds because of the result of it. But no, in the early days, it was actually really funny. when we started, we developed the show for the U.S. and then it started becoming a worldwide success. In particular, in parts of Europe, especially the UK, they had a complete ban on any ninja-related stuff, especially nunchucks, including we had to change the title of the show from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in the UK to Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles. And they would literally cut out of the cartoon every shot with Michelangelo and the nunchucks. And even they did it in the movie. When I went over to promote the first Turtle movie, I went to the premiere there. They cut out all the scenes, including like, fellow Chucker, Michelangelo. They cut that scene out of the movie, and it was so bizarre. And the scene where actually he's ordering the pizza on the phone in the UK, they literally cast this dark shadow over it, so you couldn't see him spinning his nunchucks, but you just see him on the phone ordering the pizza. So I think that when there's still some restrictions around the world, so in like the new series especially, and some of the older ones, they changed that specifically for that to accommodate, some of the global broadcasts. And I'll tell you, that was probably the freakiest thing. The first time I went to Paris, I'd never been there in my life, and then going by the Eiffel, to see the Eiffel Tower, and there's this big poster for the, Tortue Ninjas, Ninja Turtles in Paris, and I said, this is just wrong and weird and also very cool. So, listen, if you have any other questions, we're going back to the booth in about a half an hour. We're going to be there pretty much till 7 or so to close, so ask me anything else you guys would like. Bring by anything you want to get signed, and I look forward to hanging out with all of you. So thanks again for such a great time so far.
Thanks, guys.
Of course, yep.